Hello everyone, Mike here. Thank you for returning to my channel. Today I'm going to talk all about my final thoughts on Spider-Man Miles Morales, one of the launch titles for PlayStation 5. A game that I was cautiously optimistic about, but also kind of underwhelmed by when it was originally announced. And I actually did a video talking about all of my initial thoughts on it and what I thought in my earliest kind of impressions of it, basically a first impressions video. I don't know why I'm making it sound like some weird thing. Anyway, I have now, compared to my first video where I'd played about an hour of Spider-Man Miles Morales, I have now played all of Spider-Man Miles Morales twice. I have 100%ed the game, gotten the Platinum Trophy as well, which is pretty cool. And I just wanted to do a little video talking about, what I thought about it in the end. And I guess my main negative towards it at the start, which wasn't even really a negative, don't get me wrong, but it was just that I didn't think that Insomniac could ever live up to the amazing experience of being Spider-Man that you got in the original Spider-Man game on PS4. I just thought that slinging through New York City with your webs and, just soaring through the sky, diving, slinging webs, all of that stuff was such an immersive and groundbreaking experience that, yes, Insomniac could very easily do again in a sequel, but it wouldn't be as innovative and outstanding and awe-inspiring as it originally was, because I think a lot of people who have played that original Spider-Man game would agree that that initial experience where you're just thrown into the world and expected to just start being Spider-Man was incredible. And I thought it was an amazing feat. And that was my concern, that this game might just be another version of Spider-Man on PS4, and that's really cool, and that's fine, but it won't be as amazing as the original. And I guess I kind of stand by that, but playing it twice and 100%ing it, I think that this game is pretty much as good as the original Spider-Man game. For a number of reasons. I really, really enjoyed it and had a really good time playing this game. And I want to talk about what parts were so great to me and what I thought stood out and what made it different to the original game. So obviously the primary difference is that you're playing as Miles Morales, a new Spider-Man who's a little bit less competent than Peter Parker in the original Spider-Man game. And I'm just going to put it straight out there. I'm just going to say it. It might be controversial, but Miles Morales is a more interesting Spider-Man than Peter Parker. Maybe that's because pretty much all of Spider-Man in mainstream popular culture has been focused around the Peter Parker character. Aside from Into the Spider-Verse a few years ago, I think every single live action rendition of Spider-Man has been Peter Parker, whether that's the Tobey Maguire or the Andrew Garfield or the Tom Holland Peter Parker. All different sort of representations of Peter Parker, but the same character, the same story, the same backstory. Even in the last Spider-Man game, Peter Parker again. It's always been Peter Parker. Only recently has Miles Morales kind of burst into the scene, and I guess it's just, maybe it's not that the story is necessarily better, it's just fresh. It's just the story of these new characters, this different Spider-Man, for someone who's unfamiliar with the comics and stuff, I think that's way better and way more engaging. You've got similar kind of themes with Miles Morales to Peter Parker, but I just think the story is slightly better. In this one, his dad was killed in the first game in this series, and he's still very upset about that. And there's a few moments in the story of the game where you really get to sort of see how he feels about his dad dying. There's a mission once you beat the game where you collect, you go on a scavenger hunt that his dad left for him, which is really, really, really fun and quite touching. You can also visit his dad's grave, which is one of the trophies or achievements. Well, not achievements because you're not an Xbox. It's one of the trophies. And just little details like that, and constantly bringing back the father, as well as the fact that his uncle is the Prowler, and this family kind of dynamic where Miles Morales' dad was a police officer, his uncle is the Prowler, the, unspoken family dynamics there, and working with the Prowler, Uncle Aaron, and all these different things that kind of just make Miles Morales' story a little bit more engaging. I really liked having the Prowler as this vigilante that you team up with at various points in the story, and I thought that was really fun. Gameplay-wise, again, traversing through the world, essentially exactly the same as the original Spider-Man. Nothing new there. It still feels good, but again, not that original shock of how immersive it was. Still really fun, don't get me wrong, but none of that original shock there. However, the gameplay in terms of the combat and the battle mechanics does change up a fair bit, which I really, really enjoyed. The first thing is you have these new Venom powers, which I don't think is related at all to Venom, the character in the Spider-Man canon. I don't know why they called it Venom powers, because it's quite confusing. They're actually electrical powers, like bioelectricity essentially runs through Miles Morales' body, and that's what makes him different to Peter Parker's Spider-Man. Also kind of interesting because I don't think electricity has anything to do with spiders as far as I am aware, but still very cool. So throughout the game you gain some new like really strong attacks, including the Venom Punch, the Venom Dash, the Venom Drop, whatever that one's called, and you slam onto the ground. And these feel really good to use. They're not too overpowered because you have to charge them up, and there's a trade-off. Like, if you heal in battle, you lose the Venom power. So you have to trade off between healing or using stronger Venom attacks, which I found really fun. Then maybe halfway through the game, you also unlock the camouflage power, essentially just invisibility. And this adds a lot of dynamics to the battles as well that weren't there in the original Spider-Man, which is just the invisibility factor letting you do more stealth options and also transition from being active in battle back to stealth, which I think I'm not sure actually if you could do that in the original Spider-Man. I think once you were sighted, you just had to finish up the battle. You couldn't go back into stealth. But in this, you can actually be sighted and then go invisible and go back into stealth if you can. Most of the game is set in winter, so you see a more winter version of New York that I don't think we saw in the original Spider-Man. Again, I can't quite remember if that game transitioned through seasons, and that's really cool as well. I just think it was a new way of exploring New York. And from a completionist standpoint, and again, I got the Platinum Trophy in this game, definitely much less sort of grindy and invasive than the original Spider-Man. Like, everything's pretty accessible, but still very fun to do as you're going. Whereas the original Spider-Man felt like there was a lot of padding with some of the mini games there. It was like, let's stretch this game out, pad it out a bit with some of the extra stuff you can do. I feel like Miles Morales was a really good length as well if you wanted to 100% it. Like, the game is significantly shorter than the original Spider-Man, but it just doesn't drag at all. It's quite a succinct storyline. It's quite a succinct game in general, and then you go back and do New Game Plus, which is a lot of fun because it's really easy to just slam through a lot of the enemies because you've got all your unlocked powers. And yeah, a lot of the progression and the different things you could unlock skill-wise were really cool. So in the end, I guess I didn't necessarily feel like this game was holistically different to Spider-Man PS4. But at the same time, it felt, I guess I'm tossing up as to whether this could have just been a DLC pack for the original Spider-Man or if it is its own standalone game. And I'm still not sure about the answer to that. I think there's a lot to explore here, and I guess let's put it down to this. The story alone is so well told, and controversial opinion that I was thinking the entire time through this game and the original Spider-Man game is some of these stories being told and the way these characters are presented are better than any of the Spider-Man movies. I really thought that Spider-Man 2 with Tobey Maguire, which is an incredible film with Doc Ock, I thought the original Spider-Man's Doc Ock and Spider-Man story was on par with that. Like, it was a really good characterization of all of them. And likewise in this one, obviously I was familiar with some of the story beats because I'd seen Into the Spider-Verse, and that follows a similar story, but just the way these stories are told are really cinematic and really amazing writing, incredible scripts, very immersive. They could be films, and yeah, I would love to see these represented in a film space somehow. Obviously, I don't think that'd happen, but the narratives are so strong, they really, really could be. Overall, I think that Miles Morales is a really, really good game that you should play, even if you really, really liked Spider-Man. Well, definitely if you really like Spider-Man. It is sort of more of the same, but the story alone is really worth it. There was a point at the very end of the story, which I will not spoil, that genuinely made me feel really, really strong emotions that I don't remember when a game has made me feel in the past. It was quite a really, really not touching, but a really, really sad moment at the end there that was really well performed by the voice actors, and I really, really enjoyed it. So for the story alone, definitely get this game. The gameplay is great. It's more of the same, but it's great. Few additions. And I do think this, now that I think about it, I do think this deserves a standalone kind of title. Spider-Man Miles Morales, amazing launch title for PS5. Really looking forward to what else the PS5 is going to do from here. That's pretty much it. Thank you for watching this. If you could please subscribe. I do a lot of videos like this on a bunch of different pop culture elements, and I also do 2 podcasts currently that each go up in full on your favorite podcast app, as well as on YouTube in video form. So please subscribe, check them out. I'll put the artwork on the screen here and you can decide which one to pick out first, but they're all available on this YouTube channel or wherever you podcast. And just check out some of my other vids, share these with your friends, comment, thumbs up, all the engagement stuff really helps. And my channel's been really growing in the last month or so, so I really appreciate all of that. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Radio Mike. I will catch you later.
But I went to run my hand through your hair and I noticed you were attached to string. You were a puppet this whole time, you were attached to string.